This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
Coming to you live from Sector 2814. I'm Lantern Hassel, he's Lantern Monster, and we are the Nerdy Manroom Show.
Well, Hassel, if you hear a lot of loud noise behind me, that's because I am shooting from on location again due to work, and it is storming outside pretty harshly. It is very heavy rain, and I'm on the top floor of the hotel, so I get to hear all of it all night long.
Did you see how he just nonchalantly, braggadociously bragged about being in the penthouse? You know, just top floor, you know.
No, it's the top floor of a hotel, not an apartment building. There is no penthouse. I'm in the 2-queen bedroom. I don't even get the king size bed. I mean, come on. Actually, I do sometimes, but it was a different price this time, and I'm cheap, so I go for the cheapest room.
You know, the richest usually are.
Whenever they're the same price, I usually take the king bed just because it's more comfortable, and I usually get a sofa with it so I can sit down in the evenings instead of laying on the bed and killing my back and hips because I'm getting old and laying on the bed all evening long. As soon as I get here from work, it's not fun.
That is literally the worst part of being in a hotel for more than an hour is
because there's nowhere to sit. But the little uncomfortable computer chair like I'm in right now.
Yes.
And the one I've got right now, you can see me wobble because it's broken. So it sits and it doesn't drop, but it doesn't sit still. It's like it's hanging on by a thread and moving in all directions.
Wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble baby.
Wobble, 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 wobble.
There we go.
Oh, but with that, let's go ahead and get straight into the show. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. So before we get into that, let's thank our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles or in their store at 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia. Visit them for all your nerdy needs from comics to Legos, trading cards, games, toys, and more. If you need to see even further of them, check out our channel because we do have their latest commercial posted there as well. And with that, help them support the local artist community by supporting their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms Unite.
Fandoms Unite.
And I know that's been our theme for all of 2022. I don't know if they're going to have a new one or if we're going to carry that one through or if they're going to have a new one for 2023. I'm interested to see that. I know Kevin likes to do a new one. He likes to do a new one every year, but I haven't heard the new one just yet.
I'm sure he probably has something cooked up and he's waiting to just unveil it.
Well, it's not quite time there. I mean, we are in what is this, the second week of December? It's hard to tell. Time's falling together for me. It's like
we're in the final days. But he does like to just drop stuff on you, you know, just randomly. Like the big news that he hit on us last week about the Roku channel. Just, hey, surprise.
Yeah. And we will share more about that at the end of the show, I think. For everyone who's wondering exactly what you're talking about, because I don't think we've shared that publicly yet, but we will very soon. Haven't. But with that, let's go straight into Geek Week updates. I know, Hassel, you got a few more than I do because I was on location. I drove home for a day, which is a 7-hour drive, stayed home for a day and a half, and actually even had to go house sit one of those and then turn around and drove back another 7 hours. So I haven't gotten much accomplished since the last time we talked.
Well, I didn't burn up no frequent flyer miles like you, or driver miles either. So, I had a small haul. I got my Mega Power set come in. Super excited about that. It's a really cool. Anyone who's following the page, you've seen where I posted a little video short on that. That was then a quick review on that. G.I. Joe wise, I got Dusty and the Python Patrol back and Viper came in. All three look really great.
So before you go too much further from them, I'll throw in because I've gotten a lot of stuff in and I haven't had a chance to open much of any of it. I did get a couple of Joe's in, so if you're talking about them, I'll just add on to yours. But I also got Dusty myself, and I did get my Sergeant Slaughter in, and that's one of the few things that I did. I bought one to keep in a box and one open, and I actually did open him and put him in my display, and that was a well done piece.
It was. You know what? I'm honestly regretting buying two now because of the windowless packaging. Because I opened one and then I was like, fuck, I can display the empty box. Because I literally put the empty box on the wall and it's like, you don't know it's empty.
This is true. I haven't thought about that, but yeah, you've got a good point.
Afterwards, and then I was like, because the other one I left sealed in the, because those come in the cardboard box over that, I was like, fuck, man, I just got a cardboard box that was sitting there. I know what's in it, but yeah, it was just food for thought.
Yeah. Oh, and my mind bender actually came in as well. I got mine a little bit after you did because yours came in first.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. Got Spintor, then mine met her shortly after. So I was like a kid at Christmas there because I just opened the fuck out of those guys. I was like, they got to come out. They got to breathe. With that, I kind of, the rest of my geek week was pretty short and simple. I got rehooked on WWE 2K22. I don't know what it is, but I just, for the longest time, I've been creating stuff, and then I've just downloaded all these creative players. So I got back into the universe mode, and I'm actually pretty impressed with the AI on there, so to speak. They do a pretty good job of randomizing things and creating feuds. Some of the feuds kind of suck, but what I did is kind of went back and deleted like the lower tier Eliases and Matt Riddles and got them the hell out of my universe so that I could have focus on people I want to play with. So been doing that. Yellowstone, it's been great. I'm really looking forward to 1923. That's going to be really good too. And from the same creators of the show, The Tulsa King. Have you seen the previews for that monster?
I saw some previews for it, but as soon as they popped up and said from the same people bringing you Yellowstone stuff, I was out.
Dude, you're missing out. I mean, it's a great show too.
I have tried. I haven't tried that one. I have tried Yellowstone, and I will tell you that like there'd be 1 or 2 minutes of story that was interesting, and then 45 minutes of filler, and I'm like, I just don't care. And then to go back to the one interesting story for minutes here and there, it just for me, it just wasn't enough to keep my interest.
I'm a Yellowstone addict myself, and which Tulsa King is a totally different vibe show. It's nothing about it has anything to do with Yellowstone. It's just mobster shit. It's pretty cool. It's worth a watch. Give it about 2 episodes. I think they're only like 4 episodes in right now. I don't know if you've seen the previews for George and Tammy, George Jones and Tammy Wynette deal that's on Showtime.
No, I haven't.
Totally ungeek related at all, but I love the possum. So the show is great. There's been 2 episodes. It is on Showtime, but they've been doing like a free preview type deal. And it's almost good enough to make me want to get Showtime just long enough to finish the series. Because I'm sure it's only like 5 episodes. We're not betting man. But I wasn't paying attention. But anyway, it's just pretty good. Watch the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special.
That one was on my list as well. That one got me. I mean, it was very good, and I think it's been long enough now that it's been out because it's been a couple of weeks. But biggest spoiler to me was the people. The funniest part was the people in the costumes at the in New York, I guess is where they were, or wherever they were, and it was in front of the Mandarin Chinese Theater, I think, and it was and the one dude dressed like Psykill from GoBots.
Well, GoBots killed his cousin. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was awesome. I was really surprised by that at first, and then I got to thinking about the licensing agreements on it because I was like, well, the distribution for the old cartoon is owned by Warner Brothers, and I was thinking it was all them, but it's actually owned by Hasbro. They bought it from Tonka, so then I wasn't as surprised to see it because they do have such a good working relationship with Disney and Marvel for all their action figures. So,
well, James Gunn, I think he put a tweet out there and said that the GoBots were canon now, and I was like, hey. There we go.
Dude, that was hilarious. But that was a good one altogether. I really enjoyed it. For 45 minutes short, that was well worth it.
I was a little let down by the Kevin Bacon deal. It was good, but not at the same time. I wanted him to break into Footloose at some point.
That was the only disappointment was that he didn't do that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it was pretty good.
I was just totally expecting him to be like, do the Footloose and tell us how you saved the city. And he didn't. I was like, come on.
Yeah, that one was pretty good.
Other than that, that's pretty much my geek week. Other than the Georgia Bulldogs are SEC champions again, monster.
I saw a little bit of that. Yeah, I saw that game was one sided and lopsided as it could be.
It shouldn't have been, but it was. And I've got 2 W's away from getting another national championship and be the first time Georgia has repeated. So, hey, go Dogs.
That was all for yours. Mine was actually really short. I have had a ton of toys show up, and I know I've sent you a picture of several of them, but I've still got Galactus I haven't opened. His Herald showed up today. I had somebody pick up that package for me. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends 3-pack showed up. We talked about G.I. Joe. I also had Power Rangers Lightning Collection, like the last wave of window boxes, as well as the first wave of non-window boxes, all showed up at once. The Street Fighter crossovers they had with Ryu and Chun-Li showed up, and I actually did take those out of the box and pose them. Those are really neat because they come with the action features and the stand for the features, and like they're so posable. I actually was able to get Chun-Li in her kicking mode with the effect and all on it.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised on saying that. I was impressed by that.
Yeah, those were really nice. I've had some other stuff show up too that I my retro card Ghost Rider got there.
Jealous.
My X Transbox Ultra Magnus is there. I just haven't had a chance to open up anything. But when I get to go home for Christmas and I take my Christmas vacation because I'm off for like a week and a half, and I'm gonna actually break down and open all of them then. But I kind of held off on Galactus because I still need to move things to put him up. But then everything else just kept coming, and I was like, man, I'm not gonna be here long enough, so I'll just put it up until I can rearrange everything.
So did you say the Heralds came separately?
No, the Heralds that come with Galactus are in the box with him, but the Herald set with
the
Terrax and the Fallen.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, those showed up today.
I don't know why when you sent me a picture of the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which the box looks really cool, even for windowless packaging. It does look really cool.
Yeah, because it's got them doing the poses they did from the opening.
I was so let down because it's like all of a sudden I realized why we got a Molten Man. Like I had thought we just finally got some love from Molten Man in that 5-pack that is Amazon exclusive. And then it dawned on me when I seen that. I was like, these fuckers just took Iceman and painted him gold.
Well, I mean that
or cast him gold.
Shouldn't have been a far stretch though, because that Iceman mold has been around for a while. That's the same mold as the retro card one.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. Just all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I felt like I didn't get as much love all of a sudden. It's robbed.
As for a decent character, there's not really there's not a ton of backstory for him or that many stories with him. So I kind of see where it's just like, all right, let's just include him as a throwaway somewhere.
He was one of the few, like, I guess is what drew me to Spider-Man as a kid. There's just, you had some random stories here or there, and, they were standalone stories, and he just was really cool to me.
Yeah, he had a cool look. I was never huge into him, but I mean, he always had decent stories when he was there. There's not a ton with him.
Yeah.
But besides that, getting all the toys in, honestly, I haven't read much of anything because I've been traveling and I haven't been taking comics with me, but I have watched a few things. And we talked about the Guardian special, but also I've been watching Willow. That's one of the first things I go to watch as soon as it hits every week. That's actually been really, really good.
Really?
The story.
Very woke. Somebody said it was.
Not really. I'm not. I mean, yes, there is one princess who's there, and then like one of the main guards people that's coming up. I don't know what to call her because she's not a guardsman yet for the royal family, but she's training to be one. I mean, her and the princess have a thing, but I mean that's really the only. It's only the only woke thing I've really seen in it, honestly, that I can recall.
I can get beyond that. I mean, they were just saying there was like some characteristics, some mannerisms they were doing. It was a little too modern time.
Maybe, I don't know about that. I mean, maybe some of their speech pattern or something might be a little more modern because there's some stuff like the one guy's like, I don't think I'm going to be much help in this situation, and you just kind of a more modern humor and speaking, but it's not woke. It's just. It doesn't fit the time.
That could have been what the guy was beating around the bush. I haven't watched it yet, and I need to go back and watch the original movie because I just want to, get the vibe again.
I need to rewatch the original movie, but I'll tell you the cinematography in this and just the pacing and all of it's been really good. Besides that, watching that, honestly, the biggest other thing I've done is we went to the Trans-Siberian Orchestra because it is, as you can tell from my background, Christmas time, and I love listening to their music. And they put on a fantastic show with all the fire and laser lights and everything as well. But we went and watched that a couple weeks ago and really enjoyed that. And uh, that was just something fun and different. I know it doesn't really always fit into all of our stuff we're covering, but for anyone who hasn't seen it before, I would suggest going and watching it at least once, especially if you get like the $25 seats. I mean, for that you can't really
beat that. I mean, as soon as you're being all festive, monster, did you enjoy the ho ho hos?
Haven't done that. I will tell you that I did start watching the Santa Clauses, based off the Tim Allen movie, the new series on Disney Plus. And I thought I was going to be bored to death watching it. I just needed something to watch after Thanksgiving because there was nothing on. And honestly, the first 2 episodes were slow, and after that, it got actually pretty entertaining and funny, and I've enjoyed it since then. I think they're about 5 or 6 episodes in, so they're getting close to finishing it. But it was actually pretty decent. I'll be honest, I like the first movie of that. I don't remember ever even watching the third one, and the second one, I don't remember a thing about it, but I know I've watched it.
I have seen the first one. I remember it, and I think I saw the second one with the kids when they were little. I don't remember nothing about a third.
Yeah, me either. I know it's on Disney Plus, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah, and I shan't.
Oh, but with that, I think that ends up my geek week, and so we can go straight into our folks topic because I know we'll need a lot of time for it today. We similar to what we did a few weeks ago, we did a reboot of Marvel Comics and said, hey, well, if we were rebooting it, what would be our main 7 titles? We said we'd come back and do DC, so we have decided to go ahead and do that now.
So hit the factory reset.
Yeah. So along the same parameters of what we did with the Marvel one, we're going to do 3 solo titles, 3 team titles apiece, and 1 dealer's choice, whatever you choose to make. We'll share the main characters, hero and villains for each story, any supporting cast. If it's a team, we'll also share the team lineup as best we can. We'll give you a high-level idea of our first story arcs, and I don't know if you saw these the same as you did for the Marvel House. So I know for me, when I did story arcs, I still looked at it like, what would I do for the first 6 months to a year versus anything else. So mine is still along in that vein, but just like with the Marvel reboot, we would love to hear your opinions on what we give out as far as our storylines, or if you want to share what yours would be, feel free to put those in the comments down below because we'd love to read them. But with that, I think we'll do just like we did last time. We'll go back and forth on it. And Hassel, since you started us off for Geek Week, I'll let you do the first one, and I'll also give you the choice. You want to do team titles or solo titles first?
I'm going to start with the flagship of what you have to have for DC Comics, and I'm going to go with a solo title. And I'm starting with Superman in Action Comics. However, my villains are the Reign of Superman. It will have Cyborg Superman. It will have a brainwashed Steel and Superboy and the Eradicator. Eradicator is not brainwashed, however. He feels like what he is doing is for the benefit of Krypton. So he is going this route. Pretty much the premise of the story is, that they use red sun energy. They depower and kidnap John Kent, beat up Lois. Henshaw plans to swap bodies with Clark. That's his whole thing, is he wants to steal the real Kryptonian's Cyborg Superman body. So outguns Superman, he gets his ass kicked for a little while. He has to go to the Kent farm to seek backup in Superboy Prime, who has been there seeking redemption ever since this, whatever the mess is, they just deal with whatever the crap is, a dark metal, death metal shit. Apparently, it looked like they killed him off there. So he's actually been in hiding on the Kent farm, seeking redemption, trying to rebuild himself. So the two of them have to team up to defeat the Reign of Superman.
That's actually pretty good. I would enjoy reading that. The only thing I wouldn't like, because I like the character so much, is the Connor Kent Superboy being brainwashed. Just because I like that character and he gets no love. But I like all the rest of those.
Well, I figured it's like a combination of brainwashing and manipulation. Because of the Lex Luthor genes. Because he's always battled with that situation, anyways.
That's
so fair. I feel like they kind of play on that right there, and then John Henry is completely brainwashed. They have use Starro technology, Starro Plus technology. That's how he's kind of controlling them.
That is interesting.
So, with that being said, what do you got?
I also have Superman, and I put it as Action Comics versus Superman as the title, but same thing. I do have Superman as my main hero. Supporting cast, of course, you got to have Lois and Jimmy, and I didn't go John Kent route. I kind of went. Much as I like him and he's okay, I don't really care to have him in here, so I kind of went to the time period before he was around, honestly.
He's more of a casualty in my book, so
yeah. I do have Steel in here working with Superman, and I left a few other Superman supporting characters out because I wanted to use them in other books, and I didn't want to repeat a bunch of characters just because, as we talked last time, it's very hard to say, okay, well, Superman's in this book doing this, but in the same week he's in Justice League doing this, and I'm like, well, he's a fast character, but come on.
That's where I was torn because I kind of almost wanted to use the premise of this book in a team title, and I was like,
yeah.
I felt like it overshadowed the rest of things for that. So
yeah, I went with the whole usual Superman thing of you can give him a lot of villains he can just overpower, or there's very few that he can actually go toe to toe with, but it's always the brains versus brawn type thing, and him showing that he has both. So I kind of went with villains of being Brainiac and Lex Luthor both, and my arc is that I want Brainiac and Lex to be using a few other villains, and particular Metallo and Energang. And I want them to actually use them to create different disasters or crimes for Superman to have to go fight across the world to try and divide his attention. And while he's doing that, Brainiac wants to take the Earth for his collection, and Lex is just using Brainiac to try to oust Superman and use Brainiac's tech to kill Superman, making it look like Brainiac did it, and then Lex take out Brainiac so he can show that he's the world's protector, so he can try to become the president again. And all the while, Supes has to deal with all this as well as all the catastrophes around, and he's got to show that he's not just the strongest hero would have to beat everybody up, but he's got to actually save lives and then still deal with Lex and Brainiac at the same time.
I like that. That's got a very the animated series vibe to it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for with it. That, or I almost wanted to go the route, but I don't know how to. You wouldn't really have great villains in it, but that route to the storyline where he walked around the U.S. for several months, and just helped people. He didn't fly; he actually just walked and all that. I thought that was really cool take on him, just to say, okay, he's not just this big bad guy. He's he also saves people. That's his main thing is making sure everybody is good.
That would be a fun issue. I don't know about maybe an arc, but that would be a fun issue.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go it, because I was like, how do you drag that out for 6 months to a year? And
I feel like that was a little much.
Even with the story I wrote, I'm not sure it would make it a year. It might be more like 8 or 9 months, but you could drag some of it out.
I don't know. I can see that go. I can see some avenues for that going a year.
But that was my first one. What's your second title?
Detective Comics featuring the Batman. And the villain, I've got Hush, Scarecrow, and Clayface. The twist. Azrael returns as Batman, tells Bruce that he's a shadow of the Dark Knight he once was, and that Gotham needs a true Dark Knight and Batman, so he's back whether he likes it or not. And as his Robin, he has taken the Red Hood. Jason Todd is back, and Jason Todd tells Bruce that he is the one true Robin. He would just have the wrong Batman to begin with. So they're not necessarily fighting against one another, because he can't really focus on Azrael and Jason because he's got to focus on Hush, Scarecrow, and Clayface. And they team up at some point, and it's it's almost a triple threat to some degrees, but there's honor amongst thieves, with Azrael and Bruce too.
I'd read that mostly just for the Jason and Bruce interaction.
Yeah, I was like, I was jotting it down. I was like, oh fuck, I really like this.
Or excuse me, I shouldn't say Bruce. I want to see John Paul and Jason interact more than anything, to see how those two would, because they're not going to get along.
No, it's a volcano waiting to erupt with him. Don't get me wrong. But their common thread, would be Gotham needing hard justice.
Yeah.
So.
So to feed off of yours, I actually have Detective Comics as well. You can't do, just like we talked about, there's a few team titles. I think in DC there's some more individual titles, and there are team titles that you kind of have to carry through. But
and I wanted legacy for mine. That's why I Detective Comics, Action Comics. They just
same thing.
You say those, and it's like it's DC.
Yeah,
and who goes with those.
Yeah. Well, just saying. My hero, of course, is Batman. My villain for the arc is the Riddler. But my arc is I want a year-long murder mystery to really play on the Batman detective part. But I want a similar kind of like Long Halloween, but not the same. I mean, the big thing is Riddler is going to have snapped and kind of gone beyond just being the goofy, know-it-all character that he was, and just being psychotically insane as well. I mean, more akin to still have his level of intelligence and playing on stuff, but more akin to, I guess, how Joker is, insane in that way. But
kind of a Jigsaw type vibe.
Kind of, but what I want Riddler to do, the murder mystery is not surrounding normal people. He's murdering his rivals and enemies. Like any other Arkham inmates and stuff are up for or any other gangsters are up for murder here. So Batman is having to solve the murder of a lot of his enemies. So the whole time, the first several, probably 6 to even 8 months, the entire thing is being set up to look like it's Joker doing the murders because it is that insane psychotic level of killing, even without a Joker formula. Okay. Just think of how, like Joker skinning the guy alive that time just for looking at Harley wrong, that sort of thing. So Riddler snapped and going that direction. What you find out about 8 months to 9 months into it is the Joker's actually dead. He was the first villain of the Riddler, or first victim of the Riddler, because he's the one who caused the Riddler to snap because they were cellmates, or not cellmates, but next door to each other in Arkham. And his constant mind games with the Riddler caused the Riddler to snap and kill him first.
That's a twist I like.
When Batman finally solves the mystery and realizes that it's near, like I said, it's around 9 months in, so it's pretty close to the end, and he has to deal with a deranged Riddler who isn't attacking normal citizens, and he isn't even trying to attack Batman, but he's killing anybody he would consider a rival or in his way to get what he wants. And Batman has to find a way to stop it, even though there's a moral conundrum there, right? It's like, you're killing the most dangerous criminals we have, but I still need to stop you.
And I would tease you long enough of like, oh shit, where's Joker going to show up? And then when you get the reveal, that will be that holy shit moment, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I'm a little jealous of that monster, I'll be honest.
I mean, I don't know how you come back from that with all the villains, but I mean, Riddler.
Please tell me that Firefly and Zsasz gets killed.
I had thought of who all would get killed, but I mean, I'm fine with them. I mean, I want some to survive. Like, I want the Penguin to survive because he's that smarmy, slimy little villain that still sticks around and sometimes gives you information. So I don't want to kill him. But like the Joker,
the Mad Hatter, and then
yeah, you'll find some very easy victims and some that are harder, like the Joker. Maybe a Killer Croc or something. Just ones that you wouldn't expect to have gotten killed by an insane Riddler.
That's what's up right there. Wow. Okay. I like that.
All right. So that brings us to solo title number 3. So what you got there, bud?
I had to go Green Lantern, and my Green Lantern of Sector 2814 is Hal Jordan. There's just no way around it. And this book is cut and dry. It's simple. I feel like they've done enough with the Green Lantern Corps and space and all this shit. I'd like to bring him back to his roots, back to Earth. I mean, he's this sector's Green Lantern for a fucking reason. He doesn't have to be flying around in space all the time. So for my villain, I chose Mongol. He shows up on Earth. He wants to turn Coast City into War World, and that's the whole premise: is how stopping this from happening. And obviously, some of the book Mongol's gonna take a good footing in the Coast City. There's gonna be some destruction. There's gonna be teases of Parallax, his fall from grace when that happened before, Hal battling within himself as much as battling Mongol.
I would read that, but I'm a big Green Lantern fan, so I would read anything regardless.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is I really wanted to pull him out of the stars because it just seems like the last, I don't know, 10 years since he's returned, he spent more time there than he has, actually in his sector.
Yeah, and that's fair. I will tell you that I did a team book, and I'll not to share too much ahead, but I did a team book for Green Lantern, did his Green Lantern Corps, and it is a space one. But yeah, I don't know. I thought I had a better story there, and then the other solo title I really wanted, I had to go for, so I had to do something differently.
What you got?
So my last solo title is The Flash.
Ooh.
I felt like I have to have a Flash book. I mean, I needed a Green Lantern and a Flash because they're my top tier 2 guys in DC, but I can get a Green Lantern Corps and get a team book out of that, so I went with Flash as a solo title. Now, I say a solo title, but it is Barry Allen Flash in this Flash title, and that's important for later. But I do have a couple of supporting characters with him, which would be Elongated Man and Ray Palmer Atom, just because they, in the past, and growing up with the Silver Age books and stuff, they were the two that always got featured in the Flash along with him. Ray being a scientist, and then Elongated Man lived in the same city, so it made sense for them to team up. But I've got them going against the whole Rose Gallery of Captain Cold, Weather Wizard, Heat Wave, Golden Glider, Mirror Master, Gorilla Grodd, and Abracadabra. And the storyline is a time and dimension jumping case that the Flash is trying to solve. So throughout the first 5 or so issues of the story, there'd be small changes that the main characters would never notice, but the reader would. If you have a lot, maybe where Iris works as a Central City citizen, and then maybe the next issue is changed to Central City newspaper or something, just something small, but people enough to make the reader feel like, is this an error, or is this really changing because of that? It'd be very small things. Then you start seeing that's leading to bigger and bigger changes. You're like, oh, those were not errors. That's timeline changing because something's happening.
Okay. So like butterfly effect.
Yeah. And it's small enough changes at first that it doesn't affect the main characters until about halfway through, and you have Flash have to go into the Speed Force or something, and Adam has been in the microverse because Adam I don't want to show up until halfway through. He's been in the microverse doing something. He comes out, Flash comes out of Speed Force, and they're like, wait a minute. None of this is right. Something is really wrong here. They do find Elongated Man, who maybe did a couple of cameo appearances in the first half of the year, and then, working with the Flash, and he's got his powers, and he's there, and he knows who they are, so it's nothing major like that, but it's like, okay, things are changing, what's going on? These 3 heroes have to figure out what's changing in time and what's causing it. Throughout the arc, you'll see them team up to face the rogues and beat them in different heists and stuff, but what they're doing is Abracadabra is using his time travel tech because he's from the future. He's using that to every time that they fail a heist, he takes them back in time to change something that causes the butterfly effect to help them supposedly get the heist right the next time.
Oh, okay.
So they're constantly messing with time and creating these small changes. Like Abracadabra realizes he's making little changes. They don't realize how big the changes are, and eventually Flash, Adam, and the Elongated Man have to find them, go back in time, and fix all the problems they've created, as well as stop them from continuing to do this and imprison them again.
Okay.
So it's very cop show, but it's got a lot of time displacement stuff to it that would be really cool for the reader to see, okay, what's this error here? And then you find out, a couple books later, that wasn't an error. That's because they were messing with time.
That's pretty neat. I like that.
But that ends up my solo titles and yours. So what do you have for team titles?
You can't have DC Comics team titles without the JLA. That's the flagship. You got to kick it off. That was what I kicked off with, and my Justice League will consist of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. You got to have the Trinity. I went with Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, Firestorm, Aquaman, and Wally West, Flash.
Oh,
I just feel like you got the Trinity there. Then you got your Aquaman. But I feel like the 3 young heroes, the Kyle, Ronnie, and Wally, those 3, you'll have a good mix of youth and wisdom there. And they will be facing off against the Justice League International. Maxwell Lord has returned and he's still a villainous piece of shit. And he has a team consisting of Dr. Light, Solomon Grundy, Prometheus, Major Force, and Lady Shiva. And they're kind of trying to play hero, kind of very much in like Dark Avengers. They're playing hero to the public, but they're just turds and they're villains. And somehow or another, Maxwell has stolen some boom tube technology that he has worked to where, the Justice League can never really get them because every time they think they're there, boom, they're gone.
Yeah.
So they show up and save the day, but they might have been why the day needed saving. The main thing I wanted was a Lord story with no fucking Omax.
I can't blame you there. That's. I was never a fan of the whole Omax thing, but Maxwell Lord becoming a manipulative guy versus the goofy character he was back then was a needed change.
Yeah, his whole arc and all that after with Checkmate and all that from that point on was great to me. I like that. But the Omax stuff, not so much. So what you got for your first team title?
Well, I'm going to skip my first one and go down to my second one, which was the Justice League. That way we're on the same page. But I do have a Justice League. Now, I will say that I needed some version of like the main 7 onto the team. However, I did not take Batman and Superman just because I already had them in their own titles and I didn't want to use them.
Oh, wow.
So what I have for the cast is Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, Wally West Flash, because I've got Barry in the solo title, so I wanted Wally on the team. In Batman's place, I've put Nightwing on the team, and this is his chance to prove that he is the next generation, the next leader of the team, which he should be from a strategic standpoint. Instead of Superman, I decided to use Supergirl just because I wanted to keep Superman in his own title, so I went with Supergirl. Aquaman's on the team for my Green Lantern because, as you'll see in one of my other team books, I've got so many of the lanterns in space. I used Alan Scott. So they've got an elder statesman from the JSA representing with them. Then I got some other young ones as well and some older ones, but Firestorm I added to the team. I want Dr. Fate, but I want Kent Nelson. I want the original Dr. Fate so I can have a second elder statesman to the team as well. Red Tornado, Black Canary, and Captain Atom will join the team at a certain point in the book. Okay. So even though I'm missing someone like Superman, I do have some powerhouses to back him up, like Supergirl and now Captain Atom along, and Dr. Fate for the magic element, that sort of thing.
Fate is a fun character. He is definitely one that, yeah.
They underplay him a lot of times, and especially since they've started changing it out every few months, and it's not Kent Nelson anymore. They keep finding somebody new because they can't find the right person for the role. But my villains for this is I decided to go with the Hyper Clan, the White Martians from Grant Morrison's run. Okay. So what I've got is, at the end of Grant Morrison's run, they were all trapped in limbo in like a vegetative state, basically, by the League and the Manhunter. But in this book, they've actually woken up. They've escaped that captivity. The reader will see them. The League will never see them until like the very end of the arc. They're kind of the background setting everything up. What they're doing is using other villains like the Royal Flush Gang and maybe a couple others. I didn't have time to flesh out all the teams, but I was like Royal Flush Gang, Suicide Squad will get involved at some point, and I'll explain why. But I want the White Martians to be manipulating them into stealing pieces of Martian tech that they hid on Earth before they were captured last time. And what they're trying to get is something that's basically a world destroying machine. Something that could drill down to the core of the Earth and destroy it just because they want their revenge from the way they were treated last time. So some of these fights, though, have like this huge, because you're fighting with a Royal Flush Gang, you've got such a powerful League, and some of them are young, some are older. That's why some of the elder statesmen join them, in the first couple issues, because there's these huge fights and it's just property damage. And because of that sort of thing, they've caught the attention of like Amanda Waller to petition for the League to fall under UN regulations, and the League's like, no, we can't do what we're supposed to with that.
Yeah.
So they do agree, though, to take a representative onto the team as Captain Atom. And Waller wants him to spy on him, very similar to Justice League Unlimited, right? But in this case, he's like, no, he's not going to do it. He's loyal to the League because they are his friends, and he is a superhero as well as a U.S. Soldier. So He goes in as a spy and feeds her information, but what he's feeding her is false information. And like the league sees this very early on that he's feeding them information. Like they see that 2 issues into his joining the team. However, that whole thing has been orchestrated for him to give bad information by Nightwing because he saw the pattern of what was going on very early on and deduced that it's the Martians back. And none of the rest of them want to listen to him because he's the Batman light for them, right? It's like, okay, we respect you as a hero, but you're new at this team thing. You know, they don't realize what all he's really done in the past with the Titans.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So he's actually figured all this out and put a plan together. So about issue 8 or so, he slaps it in front of the rest of them and says, okay, Martian Manhunter, you've been leading the team, but you're going about it wrong. This is what we're doing. This is why Captain Atom has been feeding this false information to keep the Suicide Squad and Waller off our back. Here's the plan to take out the Martians. And they're like, wait a minute, you figured all this out. So he's kind of earned his place as the leader of the team and leads them into the final battle with the rest of them against the Hyper Man at the end of it. And I think too, the other ones who would, probably see Nightwing and not dismiss him would be like your Alan Scotts and your Dr. Fate, because Fate's going to probably know anyway from seeing the future. And Alan Scott's one of those that's always come across as like, if you've proven yourself already, I'll follow you and trust you and follow your lead. So, and of course, Wally West is going to do whatever Nightwing says because they're best friends. But still, I mean, the rest of them would have a hard time until he's proven. But the whole time he's had this whole plot going on because he's figured all this out very early on. So I kind of like they're in the background doing stuff, but you've got a hero who's figured out, and everybody else is like, okay, what's causing all this and leading to it? And he's like, well, if y'all just shut up and listen for a minute, I'd fix the problem for you. Basically a very Batman thing to do.
I love that. A lot, actually. Wow.
So what have you got for your next team, sir?
The Justice Society of America.
That's another classic. Actually, the first comics.
I had to have them, and my JSA consists of Jay Garrett, Flash, Alan Scott, Green Lantern, Hawkman, Dr. Midnight, Jade, Mr. Terrific, Power Girl, Wildcat, Commander Steel, Lightning, and one oddball that has never been on the team to my knowledge. Guy Gardner as Warrior.
Yeah, I don't think he ever has. That's an interesting one there.
I feel like he could really play Guy Gardner as Warrior, not a Green Lantern, and Wildcat. I could just see them two. They could be some very interesting panels between them. So that was kind of how I fleshed my team out, because JSA always seems to have a pretty broad, membership. They got a shit ton of people. They all play off of one on one another. And for the villains they're going against, they're going to need everybody they can get, because I got 3 villains. Magog returns, and he has time portal type shit. So he can actually play with time a little bit and jump around back and forth, future, past, so forth, so on. And he has enlisted the aid of Black Adam and Captain Marvel. And I did say Captain Marvel because he am not calling him fucking Shazam. My DC has won a lawsuit to restore Captain Marvel. But instead of it being a very childish young Billy Batson, it is an adult Billy Batson. So Magog has actually started out enlisting Billy in the future. And Billy has seen all those terrible things that happen. So in his mind, him and Magog are going to the past to try to set things right to keep a terrible future from happening. So on one hand, they're villains, but on the other hand, they're not. And of course, Black Adam, he's all for order and peace, strength. So felt like it'd be a fun title and a lot of property damage.
Yeah. That would be an interesting one. And so, as a quick aside, you brought up the Captain Marvel thing and saying that your DC won a lawsuit. You do know that they actually own the rights to that name.
Yeah, I didn't ever understand to go in the other route.
They own the only reason they did it is because Marvel got to the screen first in movies with Captain Marvel, and they wanted to differentiate themselves by using Shazam.
But you know what I mean? I've never understood it. What does he call himself? If he says Shazam, his fucking powers
So
go away.
they've changed that.
Really?
So in the past, it was anytime he said it. Now he has to say it with the intention of transforming. So he can say it without transforming now, which is stupid to me.
What a fucking lame cop out. I mean, I know it's magic. Come on. Come on.
Yeah.
I like him as Captain Marvel. And in his mind, he's doing the right thing. But it's a more adult Billy Batson, mature. He knows there's gray areas. And I've always thought McCoggle's a really cool character anyways.
Yeah, he is. I kind of like him as being in there.
It was really hard not to want to use the Kingdom Come Superman because he was with the JSA short spell. But I was like, look, I got too much Superman. I mean, I literally have Superman and the Justice League, which to me, the Trinity needs to be there. But in his own title, there's like 50 Supermen. So I was like, no, let's avoid that altogether. I got enough firepower with the rest of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's hard to do a lot of these without Superman, but I had to do the same thing, and then I realized that I've got Superman, and so that's why I only have Superman in Action Comics, but I've got Superman family members in 1, 2, 3 3 of my books out of all these. So I mean, he's almost 50%.
Half of their supporting cast are all over the DC universe anyway, so that's fine.
And that's what I did, was just take their supporting cast everywhere else and leave them in their own titles, just because as much as I think that you need to have Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman in the league, at the same time it becomes problematic because how do you tell so many stories with them? And then these are heroes who they're so busy that I can see them saying, I really don't have time unless you really need me.
To be honest with you, that's one of the things I didn't start out a DC fan, but I grew to appreciate and love it back in the day. That was one of the things I felt like for the longest time. Like they put so much time and love and energy in Superman and Batman, creating these wonderful universes around them.
Yeah.
The rest of the DC universe seemed to suffer from a lack. I mean, they had a shit ton of characters. I mean, they probably got 3 times the characters Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly. However, they're not fleshed out well enough. And that's what Jeff Johns does so well. He takes these ideas of these characters that run an issue or two, and he just builds upon them. And don't get me wrong, if you got time to do that in DC, great. But there's enough to it's like there's 20 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag in both Marvel and Superman and Batman's universes. Sprinkle them around, spread them out.
Yeah. So I will give you my next team book now. I went with Green Lantern Corps. Like I said earlier, I was trying to do a Green Lantern book in here, but I wanted to really do it as a team because as much as I love One Lantern in particular, I'm like, I like a lot of the others too. So I could see this being a team book. And my main cast has all the Earth Lanterns, so, short of Alan, but you've got Hal, John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, even the 2 new ones, Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. I did not take the newest one that they have because I just don't know enough about her character to use her. That Sojourner, I think's her name. I don't know enough about her, so I didn't use her. But besides these, the other main ones I have in here that are in majority of the issues are Kilowog, Selak, Chip, and I wanted Saint Walker from the Blue Lanterns. Now, I'll also have a lot of the other Green Lanterns who may come in and out of the story because it is a cosmic story, and I'll kind of explain what I mean by that in a minute. But, like an Arisia or Sodam Yat or somebody else coming into it, they'll come and go as they're needed, but they won't be in the vast majority of the issues. Villains for this, I've got the Sinestro Corps, the Red Lantern Corps, and Larfleeze.
Ooh.
So what I'm leading up to is very similar to some of Jeff Johns' stuff before we got to Blackest Night, but it's going to be basically a cosmic war. So Saint Walker arrives on Oa and tries to warn the Green Lanterns that all the other Blue Lanterns have been wiped out, and there's this war starting up between the Sinestro Corps, Red Lanterns, and Larfleeze for dominance of the space sectors. And they started basically their fight right around Odom, I think is the name of the planet where the Blue Lanterns live, or their home planet. So they started around there, and it wiped out all the Blue Lanterns except for Walker, and of course Ganthet and them. But I think Ganthet has actually gone back to being a regular Guardian in the current issue. So I'm just going to say he has at this point too. But So Saint Walker shows up to get the Green Lanterns involved to try to fight the war, but they have to fight it on three fronts because after the first battle, there's battle skirmishes going on in multiple places, but they've all kind of gone to their own ground and saying this is our home base and we'll fight as we run into each other, sort of thing. So the Lanterns split into three different groups to go fight on different fronts, and this would probably be a 2-year arc, honestly, because what it would be was one issue would focus on Hal and Kyle or whoever's in this team dealing with Sinestro, and then another group was John and Guy dealing with Atrocitus or whatever. So you kind of see them deal each issue. They'll rotate through for 3 issues, and then they'll be back and telling the story of what's happening in theirs, but they'll all link together. And then near the end of it, you'll see that all of the stories link together, and there's one final battle and stuff. But what you'll see in that is that one of the Green Lanterns actually has to rise to their full potential and use the power of all the Lantern Corps and actually overcome it with the green power to actually defeat all the rest of them. And I know who my favorite is, so I know who will be the true potential greatest Lantern, but you have to see it in the story, so I can't spoil that part.
I like stuff like that. I mean, and I love the long-term storytelling. That was something that the X-Men done so well back in the day. They would have that and Spider-Man both in the 80s and 90s. They'd have plot threads.
Yes.
That you get a little snippet of it, and then you wouldn't see it again for 6 issues, and they just pick up with another little small tug at it. Till a year later, it finally plays out. You're like, holy shit, that's been there the whole time. That's great storytelling to me. I love stuff
because
like
I'd love to get to the end of this, and I'll just go ahead and say that Hal would be my greatest Lantern or whatever. But I'd like to see it get to the end and be Atrocitus, Sinestro, and Larfleeze all about to throw down each other, and their corps still standing, and most of the Green Lantern Corps kind of not defeated, but almost down and out, and then Hal just have to wipe out a good chunk of all of those three's army, and then the rest of the Lanterns rise up. But I would see that being a very long-term story, because especially rotating, like, okay, if Hal's got a team, what's this team dealing with? If Kyle's got one, what's his? And then what's John's dealing with? And then that's where I say the other Lanterns will pop in and out, because I may need a couple other Lanterns on Kyle's team in this story, but you may not see them again for the next part of his story because, you go deal with this sort of thing.
Two questions, and I'm already sold one way or another. But one, is Ganthet the only Guardian, or does he have the other Guardians?
I think you go with having all the Guardians back, but Ganthet maybe being the voice of reason and the leader of the Guardians, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I like that. And secondly, is Sinestro pure villain in this, or is he Grey Jedi?
More Great Jedi, because he always thinks he's the hero, right? Like he's going to be the villain, but he wants order restored because order is doing what he says to do, not because it's peaceful order.
I got you. I like that.
And then Atrocitus, he wants order. Atrocitus wants to just destroy everything, and Larfleeze is like, it's mine.
Yeah,
that's all you got with him. It's like, well, you guys can't own all this or destroy the universe because it's mine. So they're fighting over all that.
I like that, dude. It's crazy how much Sinestro and Doom are so much alike, in so many ways.
Yeah,
that will be a hell of a team up.
Yes, it would. That would be an interesting one. Yeah, maybe one day we'll have to do some crossover series, and what will we put together as a Marvel and DC crossover?
Rebooting the amalgam. There we go.
Yeah, amalgam. Yes.
There you go. However the hell you say it.
So what is your last team book?
I wanted to go Green Lantern Corps, and for Green Lantern Corps, you have to be space like you did. You did a great job there, and so but I felt like, okay, I've crossed enough. So for my third title, I went with the Wildcats.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
I mean, it's always been, it's such a shame that they actually own this property. They just don't do enough with it. You see little snips here or there, but I always loved Wildcats, and so I went with that for my third team title. Jim Lee is going to be doing art duties. I don't give a shit how busy he is. He will listen to me as editor, and he will do the art. But my team will be Spartan, John Colt. I'll have Grifter, Voodoo, Maul, Zealot, Warblade, and Mr. Majestic. And for villains, you really just need Hellspawn.
Yeah.
I up the ante. You know, I mean, you got the Hellspawn and Damon Lance. However, in the twist, I have the Jack Marlowe Spartan. You know, the Spartans are he could upload his consciousness into another Spartan body.
Yeah.
So, and he took the persona of Jack Marlowe, which was a little different persona than the John Colt version. So, basically, Hellspawn is working. He's working with Hellspawn to get his void powers back, and his void powers and connection back. He's kind of lost his mind. He's split off into another body from Colt. So they kind of done this when he rebooted, so to speak. And he's been kind of off in the distance, thinking he's the true Spartan, kind of like Peter Parker and Ben Riley. Well, what you had in the '90s there for a while, like you didn't know who was the real one. That's kind of how they are. Except for he's working with Hellspawn, but he thinks in his own mind, even though he's kind of mad that if he can get his void powers back and his connection to the void and center himself, he'll be fine, and then he'll just destroy Hellspawn. Now Hellspawn's just using him as a pawn there.
Man, I haven't read Wildcats in so long. I kind of want to read this now.
Hey, now it screamed the '90s, dude, and that's so much fun you could have it with a title like that.
Since you brought that up, as a quick aside, I have seen solicitations, and I don't know if it's started coming out yet. I think it's not till like January, February, but it's they recently did some Suicide Squad where Amanda Waller was trying to like take over Earth 3 or whatever, where the crime syndicate is, and they've got one now. It's Amanda Waller and I think it's just called Waller versus Wildstorm, but it's her and the Suicide Squad attacking a lot of the Wildstorm. I don't know the whole story, but I've seen where they're going against the Wildstorm universe characters.
Well, I didn't realize until I got to researching some stuff for this because I was wanting to try to, not so much research, but I had to refresh myself,
Yeah.
on Wildcats, some of the lore. And I seen they're actually doing a new title again. They're like on issue 3, but it looks to be just like Grifter leading things. I don't think Spartan's in it.
Yeah, I haven't picked up any of it. I haven't since the original series. I haven't really enjoyed them as much, but I love the original one.
I did too.
I will say I did really like too the crossover where Mr. Majestic got transported to Superman's titles, like on, and it was dealing. And him and Superman had, because Majestic was Superman but a dick, and Superman was trying to like temper him some, and and the two of them working together was just very interesting to me because he's like, I can just kill him, and Superman's like, no, you cannot.
That was around 2005 or so, I believe.
Yeah. That, and I remember the Captain Atom book where he got transported to the Wildstorm universe and turned into his gold armored look from Kingdom Come.
Dude, that was one of the few things of New 52 I did enjoy was Hellspawn just randomly shows up in a fucking Superman issue.
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit. And he teases his nose knowing that he's Kal-El and all about Kryptonians. And then he just leaves and you don't see him again. Nothing else.
Yeah.
It was like, what the fuck?
I don't know if they really knew where they were going with a lot of the New 52 stuff. It's like it was changing on the fly. But, my last team book, just to keep us moving along, was Titans. So I debated between Justice Society or Titans. Justice Society was the first superhero team, but Titans is the legacy one. And I wanted to go with the legacy one, I think. So I went with the Titans and the Next Generation. But my main cast in this is Tim Drake as Robin, the Connor Kent clone Superboy, Impulse, Wonder Girl, the Cassie Sandsmark one, the one from Young Justice. And then we've got from old school Titans, we've got Arsenal, Raven, Cyborg, Beast Boy, Starfire. And the last member of my team is kind of probably a shocker one for this because other than the Young Justice cartoon, she's never been with these teams but Zatanna.
Okay.
Because I want this to be my mystical book.
So that reminds me very much of the Jeff Johns team when he rebooted Teen Titans in the early 2000s. So great book.
And it's got kind of that similar vibe because you'll see as part of the art that some of this is they're kind of trying to combine the two generations, like the second generation and the third generation together. And Arsenal and the second generation think that they're training and teaching these kids, and they find out these kids are teaching them just as much because none of these kids at this point are really amateurs. But before I get too far into that, my villains are Brother Blood, and he's leading the Hive.
Okay.
Not only is he leading the Hive, but he is actually has them learning more about arcane stuff and doing arcane rituals. And they are raising Trigon with a demon army, but Brother Blood is mystically controlling Trigon. So it's not just Trigon, and it's not him at full power, but Brother Blood is controlling him.
But you know what, a 50 to 75% Trigon,
Yeah.
that's still pretty badass.
Yeah. So this Titans team, like I said, they're brought together between Young Justice and the Titans, and it's like, okay, some of these, like Nightwing's moved on to the League, some other stuff like that, but these Titans think that they're going to train the Young Justice kids to be the next generation of heroes, but the kids are already more capable than they realize.
So who fills Dick's shoes and becomes the leader?
I got to go with Tim Drake, man. I think he just really has it in him. Besides that, I want them to show that, hey, I want this to have some not only conflict with the enemy, but conflict within the team, because you've got different generations looking at the same thing and saying, well, we would do it this way, but your way worked then, but it might not work now. So we're going to try it our way. The big thing with Zatanna joining them is this is all a mystical thing, and Raven's the only mystical member they really have, and she's not strong enough to defeat Brother Blood and Trigon, so they bring in Zatanna, who, short of Dr. Fate, is probably the most powerful mystic in DC. And they've proven that time and again, but I want her to join, and her whole ordeal is, okay, so I've been recruited by the Kids League. I got to go sit at the kids' table, because she's been in the Justice League, right? So there's one more level of conflict amongst the team, but at the same time, she walked away from being in the League and being a hero. She kind of retired more or less and just went to a stage magician act thing. So she's got to refine her power and herself to really help them. But there's just a lot of internal conflict to the team, which is basically what you would have with the brother-sister type of dynamic, right? Between brothers and siblings and sisters. And I want them to see that, and then everybody on this team kind of finds, okay, we are a team together, but everybody has their certain place in the hierarchy of this team, as well as in the rightful, entire DC Universe legacy line. So where do each of us fall, and how does this team work together? And they have to figure that out.
Where they have internal strife for most of the title until they finally come together.
Yeah, it's the WWE Survivor Series. How will they coexist?
The real question is, does Zatanna mind wipe half the team after a terrible rape? do we go identity crisis on this?
No, we'll leave that out of this. Okay. We want this to be family friendly.
Okay. PG.
So that brings us to our wild card for each of us, our dealer's choice. So what did you have for this?
I went totally into left field, and I went with Red Tornado.
Oh, that's awesome.
And my villain, of course, is going to be Professor Ivo, but he's going to have a Mazo. And the real underlining goes, you think they're the only two, and then towards the middle to the end, you realize that Ivo has created a new android, which will basically be the sister to Red Tornado, and she'll be called Humanity. And that's the whole thing, where like Red Tornado is wanting to try to show her she has a path that actually being, good and having a family and the things that he has, to where you got Amazo and them just showing her, hey, I can be a pawn and evil. So it's an overlong, I really wanted to play out some of the stuff they did with Red Tornado when he was in Justice League. Because, they really took a lot of time to build him up and make him such an established, great character. And then it just threw him aside. It's like we're done playing with this toy. And
yeah, like, pretty much.
Yeah, they've done such a great job of building him up, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom. So that was the path I wanted to go.
I'd actually like to see a new Red Tornado book. They haven't done one in a long time.
No.
There's several characters they haven't done in a long time, or haven't done justice when they have done a book in a long time.
And that character's got such great legs for a story. I mean, you could easily do a 2-year arc with him, over time. Like have other villains in there and then lead up to Ivo, Amazo periodically showing up, and then Humanity, hit and miss here and there till there's a big payoff at the end.
That was one I wasn't expecting. And my wild card one may be one that you probably hadn't thought of or wouldn't expect. But my last one is going to be, it's a team book, and it's going to have some seriousness to it, but I want it to be the more kid-friendly book to bring in younger readers too. So I went with Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes.
Okay.
Set in the 31st century like they're supposed to be. There's so many characters in the Legion, I'm not even going to sit here and try to name them all, but it's all of them. The only one I'm going to name off is the Superboy I want in this title is John Kent. I want him to, like he did a couple of years ago, is go back to the future and be with them, just so they have a Superboy of some site. And I've already used everybody else in the Superman family, so he was the only one left.
Yeah, you know what? That actually does a good job of removing him from the current day product to where it's like we haven't cast him aside, we haven't thrown him away. He has his place now.
Yeah.
Because he is the future anyways. I mean.
So this one is a little bit different because the arc is not as set as some of these others. I mean, there is an arc, and the main villains are the Fatal Five, which has always been, even though there's 5 of them, they have always given the Legion a run for their money. But I want this to be a little more kid-friendly, so it's not quite as dark as some of the others. But as you go into it, it's like the first 5 issues, there is no arc to the villains. They're a backup story in the issue to tell the origin of each of one of the members of the 5. So you've got the Legion just dealing with whatever in the first 6 issues total, but the first 5 they're just dealing with hey, introducing some of the characters as well as dealing with a crime on this planet or fighting a team of villains or even an uprising or something on another planet, but just something to give them a story and then give a backup story to the Fatal Five. So you don't have to buy every single issue unless you want to see the origin of them, and then in the 6th issue you get the origin of how the Fatal Five become a team as the backup story. Now, from that point on, there's no more backup stories, but you start to see where there's random uprisings happening on other planets, and because they are the United Planets instead of United Nations or whatever, but the Legion is splitting up to go deal with these different political issues or, I said uprisings, but something going on that causes them to have to go to the planet to shut down whatever's happening and bring peace to it. All this is being fostered by the Fatal Five since they became a team in that 6th issue. So they're kind of setting all this up for the Legion to have to go deal with it, and then that leads them to a final fight by the end of the first year with the actual Legion. So I wanted it to be a little more lighthearted, less heavy arc, but there is an arc to it, but you have to get past the first 6 issues to actually see an arc start to happen.
Is your Starman crazy? Does he have his mind?
No, I want the Legion as they were where they were teenagers, so it's like Starboy, and he's all there together and stuff. And
I got you.
But I want to be able to see characters like Mon-El that they had, who is a Superman family member from the future, and then you got Karate Kid in there, and Invisible Kid, and Lightning Lad, and Cosmic Boy, and all the rest of them.
It's a fun title.
It's geared more towards the kids than anything, but you got to have something to draw some younger readers in. And I realized as we did Marvel, and then as I started doing this, I was like, man, a lot of these have a lot of adult themes, or they're a little bit darker or stuff. So maybe I should do one that's a little more lighthearted.
That's the thing. You do have to drag the young reader in, so to speak. So that's a good job.
I think you could. I think I could have done that in the Flash if I'd have went with Wally West, because every time they do a Wally West Flash, they'll have a serious storyline in the art, but then you'll have this just very lighthearted issue, like the one I sent you pictures of, where they're in the Universal Wrestling League is landed on Earth, and they're like, don't worry about it. He shows up like, you guys are destroying product. They're like, no. The self-repairing robots fix everything after we leave. This is just for a TV show, and he teams up with the Hulk Hogan lookalike who has the Intercontinental Belt.
Well, see, you can't. It's impossible to write Wally and not have some lighthearted humor and fun in there.
Yes.
So he brings that to the table.
Yeah, but I realized as I went through this, I didn't have that anywhere. And I will admit, I almost went for my last book to be Aquaman and be more political based, like Jeff Johns' last run coming out into Rebirth, because that was very interesting.
Mm.
But I decided against that. I decided to go more lighthearted.
Monster, I think we've done one hell of a job of rebooting and putting DC back on course.
We've tried to fix both companies, so there's some others out there, but nobody else has a main section of core titles like that I think you could really just tear apart and start over and still be okay.
At this point, I don't know why Jim Lee and Quesada hasn't called us. I don't know what's up with them.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for them, but what I can speak for is the next segment of the show, which we can move into, which is our nerd out. So for anyone who hasn't been here before, this is where we ask random questions, focus on the topic of the day, give off the cuff answers, and then it's usually pretty entertaining. But if you would like to share your answers to our questions in the comments, we'd love to hear it. Or if you want to expand on ours, we'd love to hear that too. This is your chance to interact with us more as well. But Hassel, you've been going first all day, so I'm going to let you continue going first with what is your nerd out question.
And you know what? The Hassle is prepared this week. He has
That happens like every 4 shows.
I know, right? I'm ready this time.
Wait a minute, this is 2 in a row, though. This is 2 in a row, so that we need to have some kind of applause or something going to get inserted here.
I think there's maybe fixing the end or something. So we have successfully rebooted Marvel and DC at this point. So my nerd out is, which one Marvel character from the 616 would you have a wormhole pull up, and this one character is pulled out and shot into the DC universe, and how would that play out? And you can play it out over 1 to 2 years. We're talking long-term storytelling. You don't have to give him back in 6 issues.
All right, so I will answer your question, but I'm also going to call an audible and say that I'm gonna ask you a second question as well, because you just made me think of something on the spur of the moment that I have to throw out there now. But to answer your question first, man, something I think DC lacks a good bit is kind of a. They have a few of them, but I feel like they really like them as like a tech savvy hero a lot. They have some who are very smart, who use a lot of tech and all, but none that like wear an armored suit like an Iron Man or a War Machine or something. So I want to go with a teched out hero, but I want to use one that's not like I don't want Iron Man or War Machine. I think I'd want something like maybe like Darkhawk, like he was when he first started, where he was a street level hero, but he was a tech powered guy.
Yeah.
Not the cosmic version of him, but like the younger version from the 90s, where he was all street level and teched out, and just to see how he would fare in the DC universe, because he's got tech and he's powerful, and they don't rely on tech a lot. I mean, you do have some, but most of them are not like armored. It's just like, oh, we found this formula, so we use this formula for this. So I think that would be interesting to see how his tech holds up there, but also, how does he deal with something like you could have him fight Intergang and be fine, but how would he deal with an actual world-threatening type villain? So I'd like to see him being there, and I would have him probably. I don't want to have him in Metropolis, but I want to have him deal with something like an Intergang or a mob for the most part, but then have like Metallo or somebody be in charge of it, and like, how do you really deal with this?
That sounds pretty cool there. I mean, I like that. Yeah, because it's crazy. Like, for all the geniuses that DC has, like, Mr. Terrific and guys like that, Steel's really the only one you have that's got a suit of armor type of deal.
Yeah, I mean, they use their stuff. Like the Atom uses his size change and tech and stuff, and Mr. Terrific has all this tech, but they're going into battle mostly unprotected. They're not wearing an armor suit. They're not they're not using this strength enhancing armor and stuff. It's very limited on what they use for that.
And let's face it, they're not Mr. Fantastic. So I mean, it's one thing to be smart like him, and you can have durable body that shapeshift.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, and really the only armored ones I can really think of is Booster Gold, but his armor is kind of not the same level. Steel, Rocket Red. But I mean, beyond that, and Blue Beetle now, but I mean, old school Blue Beetle, no, not really.
No, I don't even count the new Blue Beetle.
So who would you pull over?
I pull over Ben Riley, and he lands in Gotham City. And upon arrival, he's disoriented, trying to get his wits back about him, and he battles Man-Bat upon arrival. Because Man-Bat is, there, he's wreaking havoc, instincts kick in. So Ben obviously tries to save the day, not quite sure where he is, not realizing he's not in New York any longer. He defeats the Man-Bat, and like all great team-ups, Batman and Robin show up. They have to battle until they realize, hey, we're not all assholes here. We're on the same page. And at this point, that's where Batman and Robin try to to help him get his footing in the DC universe and help him along his way. He does a lot of battling in Gotham, but he does branch out into the DC universe and some of the mystical stuff, and come to find out something to do with Krona is how he got yanked. The big hand grabs him.
That would be interesting. I very similar to what you said there. I almost went Daredevil on the same thing, but then I felt like, well, it's really just fighting Batman without gadgets.
Yeah. I just feel like, I don't want to rob Peter from the Marvel universe, but being
Right.
they get spared is close enough. And plus, not only would it be like having Spider-Man there, but there's a different layer to being that you don't get with Peter. The I'm not good enough.
Different experiences.
He has a lot
after the original calling. I mean,
well, he was on the road for 5 years, and then there's this added layer of insecurity about him that he has to always try to reassure himself before so he goes a little too far sometimes.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
So what do you got, Monster?
So let me ask you my question you made me think of just off the cuff a minute ago.
Okay.
So we talked about just Marvel and DC and the reboots for them. If you could take any one title out there that belongs to another company, not one of these two, which company would you put it in, and what would it be?
I would take Spawn, and Spawn fits perfectly in Marvel to me.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I mean, I can see some really great stories with him and DC. Don't get me wrong, but I just feel like he would fit really well in Marvel. Like some stories with Spawn and Ghost Rider, Stopheles, Doctor Strange. I mean, these will be like some really cool, because Spawn. Al Simmons has this "fuck you, I don't care" attitude about him. And he's of the people at the same time.
I mean, you're the way you describe Spawn fitting into Marvel. The thing I think about is like Marvel is much more grounded and realistic and gritty in the comics, and then you get to the movies and it's a little more lighthearted. DC is the exact opposite. DC is very lighthearted in the books and much more grim and dark and gritty in their TV shows and movies. And I'm like, why do y'all swap when y'all do that? But yeah, my thought on this, and I thought about this when you asked this, so I do have another question, which was my original one. I'll ask you in a minute. But, I always thought if I was going to take something out of somewhere else and drop it in, especially after seeing the crossover they did, I would take Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and drop them in DC.
Ooh.
I could see them fitting in DC because they're more lighthearted. Like, they would not fit in Marvel, but the Justice League Power Rangers crossover they did was actually pretty decent. Now, I don't know how you have these monsters of the week attacking and Superman not just flying up to the moon and being like, all right, Zed, one more time.
All right, Zed, we got to have a one-on-one this time.
Yeah. But I could see their characters fitting well into the DC lineup.
I mean, I'll be honest, I still like to see that the crossover idea you and I had 10 years ago with the Power Rangers and all the Lantern Corps, where their powers are tied into the spectrums. Yeah,
now that would be really neat. And that's maybe we should take a show one day and explain that as a concept.
That is something we visited probably easily 10 years ago, but that would be a fun episode.
Yeah, map out who all would the characters be, what would their powers be, what spectrum do they fit into. That would actually be pretty cool. Backstory on why they fit into each spectrum. That might be a future episode for a few weeks from now. We've got a few loaded ones. Yeah, we've got a few loaded ones coming up soon, but let me jump back because I did want to take that as an aside as a quick one. But my original question that I had for today: who's the most underrated character from DC that you think needs their own series that really plays up their powers and importance? Now, and this doesn't have to be somebody who hasn't had one for a while. They could have had one recently, and it's just been piss poor series. But we want to see them have a major resurgence with this. So, who would you choose and why?
Probably Martian Manhunter, because he is such a powerhouse. I mean, he has 80% of the power Superman has, plus telekinesis, he can make his body intangible. I mean, he's got so many more pluses without the flaws that Soups has. He's he's just really cool, and he's got cool layers to him. Other than the fact that his biggest weakness is fire, but that's because of his mental, backwards. If he could get that under control, he'd be impervious to that as well. So I mean, that could be really fun, and I would have to play off the White Martians to rob from you from earlier.
Yeah,
But that there is really cool. Was Grant Morrison writing Justice League when they done the whole thing where he was trying to like edge into getting over his fear of fire, and like he was dating a pyro chick. And,
I think
she
so.
was like mentally torturing him with fire, but it was to help build him up.
Yeah, I think that was around the same time. And actually, that was because that was I don't know if that was in Justice League or if that was in his series, because he had a series in the 90s, the late 90s,
maybe it was
early 2000s. And that's the only reason I didn't choose him, was because that series wasn't too long ago and it was pretty good. Because I was thinking, okay, who's not had something that even longer than that, or if they have, it's just been crap.
If I wasn't gonna go with him, I would go with Ronnie Raymond Firestorm.
So that's actually who I chose, and I debated between Firestorm, Captain Atom, and Dr. Fate. Captain Atom had a great series in the 80s when they first brought him, over in the Crisis and stuff from, what was it, Time, or whoever they bought. I can't remember who it was now off the top of my head, even though I know it by the back of my hand. Charlton Comics. But he had a great run in the 80s, and then everything they've given him since then has just been as a side note, and it's not been as interesting. Same with Dr. Fate. Last time he had a good series is when Kent was retiring for the first time. They had the lady and her stepson, and they had to merge into a Dr. Fate body. That was actually a good series, and Dr. Fate was done well in some of the stuff outside of that. But neither of them have had a great run, and Firestorm hasn't had anything great since the 80s in his run. But that's why I went with him, because in the 80s, he was the closest you got to a Spider-Man character in DC, where he's relatable, he's young. Yes, he combines with this old guy and Professor Stein to merge into Firestorm, but that gives him basically his Aunt May or his conscience as part of his persona already. Okay. And I was like, man, that was really good back then. That was a great title, but they haven't done anything with him since. I will say,
let me ask you this. Does he still merge with Stein, or is it a deal where he becomes Firestorm and he just subconsciously, the Stein is still part of his subconscious, like his voice of reason, so to speak?
I kind of like it where he merges with Stein, because it gives you some outs for some reasons for him not to be where he needs to be, or to be as powerful as he could, or to have him, okay, this person attacked the high school or whatever, and I just can't just turn into Firestorm and fight him because Professor Stein's not here.
Yeah.
So it gives you some plot devices to use. I will say I did like the New 52 wasn't terrible when it had him and it had Jason, and they both turned into separate Firestorms, or could combine into one together to be even more powerful. But I don't know. I didn't find Jason, the way they wrote him, and that to be an interesting character.
Before that, I did. Before they done New 52, I actually liked
Before that, I liked the character.
Yeah.
But when in New 52, I just didn't like, because they made him the whiny, complaining character to Ronnie's jock character, and I was like, if you're going to combine the two of them, maybe, but you didn't. You had them as separate Firestorm. One was a yellow suit, one was a red suit, and I like that concept, but you didn't use them well. But I liked Jason before that, but I liked Ronnie a little bit better, especially like I said, the 80s style where he was Spider-Man-esque, more or less.
Yeah. Yeah, fun book. I like that.
Yeah, I'd like to see him come back and do something with him, but every time they pop him up now, it's just to have him get stabbed and explode and have a nuclear explosion around.
Unfortunately.
But with that, I think that brings us almost to a close today. But before we leave, let's give some shout outs to some of our friends. So first up, Mr. Daniel Garcia, creator of Zyberona, which I know is out now. And you can find him on Facebook at Daniel Garcia and on Instagram at DGarciaComics. And stay tuned to the show here, because we're going to have him on soon to talk about some new updates that's coming up. Mr. Chris Daly, host of Fueled by Weird podcast. You can find him on Instagram at Fueled by Weird, and on his podcast, Fueled by Weird, wherever you can find your podcast at. And he discusses all things nerdy and weird and does some great book reviews. content creator and autism activist, Miss Mandy Lynn, aka Coochie Mama. You can find her on Instagram at Coochie Mama and on YouTube at Doodle's Toy Report. And check her out on Instagram now. I think she's actually loading up her toy store with some of her collection to start selling off some of it to build up into a larger portion. Mr. August Aguilar from Strange Film Studios. Remember to keep an eye out for their new film, He Comes to Kill. I see they are still making some rounds at some festivals and stuff and sharing the movie.
Doing pretty well too.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of new interviews he's got on his podcast as well that's coming up.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget about our extended nerdy Manroom family member, Big Rob, as he shares on his channel, Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food. He shares stories from the road where he's on the road. He's basically our own location member of the family here. And then he also reviews new items that he unboxes. Got some great new videos. I just watched one of them today. Really funny stories that he had to share. His review of wrestling. So that was very entertaining.
And he'll be here in a few weeks when we do the Excelsior Awards, Monster.
Yes, he will. And remember, when you're checking all these out, don't forget to check out our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles or in their store at 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia. Visit them for all your nerdy needs and help them support the local artist community by supporting their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And before we get to close out, and before Hassel tells you where all you can find us, Hassel, you wanna share some news? As part of where to find us, you will soon be able to find us elsewhere. And Hassel, I'll let you share that.
You will soon not only be able to find us on the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and most importantly, YouTube, but you will soon be able to find us on Roku TV. That's right, people. We are coming to a television near you and streaming platform Roku. So there'll be more details of that very soon coming up, courtesy of our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles. We can't thank Kevin enough. But yeah, we're about to invade your TV, people.
Yeah, but before we even get there, Hassel, make sure where they can find all of our handles at for all the other
Most
stuff.
importantly, YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, share us. But you can find us on Twitter at NerdyMR Show. You can find us on Instagram at Nerdy Manroom Show and Facebook via Hassel Hutchison.
And with that brings us to a close today. But join us here next time as we have a new interview and some updates from our friend Daniel Garcia. At least that's the plan right now, if we can make everything work out timing wise. Until then, live nerdy and survive the dark crisis.